can get soccer moms and legislators to take a big, deep breath and know that mushrooms have a great medical benefit. Johns Hopkins University has been proving how they help people overcome addiction, depression, anxiety, and their greatest medical benefit with the highest amount of evidence so far is helping terminally ill patients get over their fear of death, which is really, really important.
Yeah.
So imagine you're going to die. Like, this is your last year on Earth, Matt. Say goodbye to all your friends and the smell of grass in the morning because you're done. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And if you had one substance that you could take and have peace with yourself because you took it and it gave you that peace, how could you take that away from someone who needs that? So we need medical mushrooms, and we should have them. And there should be a system that takes care of this situation in a really serious and logical way. And so that's what's happening in Denver right now. And let's not forget Oakland, California as well. And Oakland did more than decriminalize mushrooms. They decriminalized entheogens. And an entheogen is a sacred plant medicine. Peyote, ayahuasca, San Pedro, cannabis, datura, all of them.
Wow.
And so, yeah, this is a big deal, man. This is a really, really big deal.
Now, if you were to jump on a subway with a friend and you only had 2 stops to tell that friend what you find most compelling about mushrooms right now, in that limited time, what would you tell them? What would you share?
I would tell them that if you take mushrooms the right way, setting, and skill set, not a concert or your mom's basement. If you do mushrooms properly, they can change your life. They can put you in its place, in your place, in a perspective that is positive and conscious in terms of personal growth. And I think a lot of the world needs that right now, including me.
Yeah,
it's just the same thing as PTSD and what they're doing with MDMA. Same group out of Johns Hopkins, MAPS. Yeah. And also MDMA Schedule 1, even though it's curing people's PTSD, not treating, curing PTSD. So yeah, I think this is important stuff to talk about.
Well, when I talk to some people are really on board with that and they want to try mushrooms, but you said, setting and so forth. There is hey, I'm nervous about having a bad trip. That seems like it's out of control. I would be out of control. And that's where the fear really comes from. I've been on the edge of having a bad trip before, but it's like when I just accept what's happening versus try to control it, that's when the bad trip just seems to go away. And it kind of goes back into a good place as long as you're in a fun environment, not fun, but just kind of a chill environment that's not going to present too many negative surprises. But can you just kind of talk about how you would answer that question? Like, hey, I'm afraid of having a bad trip. What do you say when people say that?
I say, good. You should be afraid. Because you're damn right you should be afraid, because if you're not, you're crazy. And it's because if you first of all, that fear of the unknown is you being most human. It's a gift to your species to keep you alive. And so use that fear and that amount of caution to ensure that you don't do them wrong, that you do them right. Be afraid until you're no longer afraid, because you've done enough homework, you've done enough research, and maybe you've even set yourself up with a trip sitter. Where I live in Colorado, there are actual trip sitters that you can hire. And these aren't just hippies in t-shirts, like tie-dye t-shirts, right? These are people who have gone to school for psychotherapy, typically at Naropa, and they're highly experienced with these substances. They've done them many times themselves. and they know how to help you push through really difficult situations, and they're there for you. Like, you're supposed to cry your brains out and have a breakthrough, and it's uncomfortable and it doesn't look pretty. It's not really normal in our society. It's perfectly normal in other cultures all around the world. And so, if you don't have access to a professional trip sitter, if you have access to mushrooms, don't be afraid to ask a very legitimate, reasonable person who would be a good trip sitter to be there for you. And then also, just know that there's a ton of misinformation about mushrooms as there is cannabis. And one of the things that's really frustrating is one of the largest information sources on drugs like mushrooms is Arrowhead. And if you go there and say, hey, how much is a dose? It will say an eighth. And that is insane because an eighth of mushrooms is 3.5 doses. But you have to say, like, weight max. If you're saying a dose is 1 gram of psilocybin mushrooms, what species of mushrooms are you talking about? Because out of over the 30 types of psilocybin species that not only grow around the world, but are legally shipped in spores to mushroom enthusiasts and cultivators all over the planet, how do you know that the mushrooms that you're eating are cubensis or golden teachers? Purple Majesty, B+. How you know what I'm saying? And so mushrooms is something that you should, like cannabis, tiptoe with in terms of an experimentation phase. So microdosing them by taking a tiny amount just to gauge it is what you should do. Maybe explore it a little bit further. And when you know, like, oh, this bag of mushrooms that I just so happen to have affects me in this way. This Sunday, I'm going to plan a large dose, which means I'm going to take 5 times the small amount I took originally, maybe even 10 times, and still know that I'm eating less than maybe 2.5 grams of mushrooms, maybe 3 grams. Just don't ever exceed, 4 grams of mushrooms unless you're ready for the big boy dose, which is considered 5 grams of mushrooms. But, if you're taking 2 to 3 grams of mushrooms in a safe place, you're set up, you've got a game plan, you know what you're going to do in an 8-hour period: yoga, meditation, journal, draw, talk with your friend, go on a walk. You really could have an explosive experience in your own living room that could really propel your consciousness and your understanding of everything, like a 30-year worth of therapy. And get over some stuff, but that's using mushrooms like purposefully. And sometimes mushrooms can be fun, like just eating a small amount at a concert or going on a hike, and that's fine too. But it's just not okay to just like eat some amount of some kind of mushrooms and not have a game plan and not know who you're hanging out with or what you're about to do, because your setting, your friends, what you're doing, what you ate, could do the opposite of give you a 30-year, burst through time. It could send you on a psychedelic hell for hours on end, to the point where you actually might want to commit suicide. It's so psychologically bothersome, and that's a danger point too, which is why people have to be really cautious about this stuff, and why we have to go slow with it.
Right. Now, what is the connection between mushrooms and Santa Claus? A lot of people don't know about this, but after you kind of explain it, they might see this in some of the art